Welcome to Wild Shift episode number 6. My name is Tzach, and over the past few years, I've been reflecting on my life in my home country and the choices that led me to where I am today. In this podcast, I dive into the stories of people who have made bold changes in their lives, leaving behind comfort for something new and unknown. Join me as I explore what inspired them to take these leaps and discover the impact of their decisions. If you enjoy this episode, please share it with others. And today I had the pleasure of sitting down with the inspiring duo Dawn Ritter Fischer and her son Ty Fischer. Together, they've crafted unique lives as nomadic travelers, each on their own remarkable journey of self-discovery and entrepreneurship. Dawn, a solo world traveler and writer, has been on the road since 2019, embracing a life of adventure and transformation. Her message of empowerment, especially for women, shines through as she shares her experience of breaking free from societal norms and redefining what it means to live an extraordinary life no matter your age. Ty, an entrepreneur and digital nomad, left the fast pace of Los Angeles to build his business remotely from the beautiful island of Koh Phangan. Running a successful real estate lease company, he combines work with this freedom to live and travel overseas, offering a fresh take on lifestyle and design and entrepreneurship. Our conversation was a fascinating look into the world of nomad living, personal growth, and the courage it takes to chart your own course in life. Let's dive into this heart-opening episode with Dawn and Ty. So today we are here with Dawn and with Ty, and thank you to Shanti Rock Hotel for hosting us in this beautiful, beautiful hotel. And they have a coffee place as well. It's just really amazing, and we're very grateful for them to give us the place. So I want to start with asking you, who was the first to make that crazy jump with start being a nomad, like start traveling the world and like living the ordinary life? Yeah. Who was the entrepreneur of this project?
It was
you.
It was mine.
I always thought it was Ty, actually. No. Okay.
It was me. Like 6 years ago, I had the opportunity to take an early retirement from my job. And I was only 56 at the time. So it was like super early to do it. But, I decided to recreate the life that I had at the time and really focused on taking myself outside of like the societal expectations for somebody my age, right? And so that was my opportunity to sort of take the leap. I always wanted to travel without a timeline. And I had done some solo traveling, before that, just to sort of build up my courage and feelings of empowerment and that kind of thing. And when I had the opportunity, I said, I'm gonna go for it, So I rented out my house.
Wow. In the U.S.
In the U.S., in Texas.
In Texas.
And rented out my house, and I started in South America. I raised my family in the Midwest, in Wisconsin. And then after my divorce, I transferred with my company to Texas. So I was in Texas for about 3 years, I think, before the opportunity came up for. So that was like super like unexpected sort of as well, moving to a new place, like began dating again, like all that. Making new friends because I really didn't know anyone, and all my new like territory with my work was all new and all of that. So I spent a lot of time sort of challenging myself to get over the discomfort of those kinds of things. And pretty soon I found myself really like craving the discomfort challenge because I felt so strong and powerful, like, when I would do those things. So I just said, I recreated a life and just said, I'm going to travel without a timeline nomadically. And I'm just going to go. I really didn't have many set plans. Like I knew I wanted to be in South America for probably like 4 to 6 months.
Okay.
And, so I was in Chile and Argentina and then Patagonia, which was absolutely amazing. And I traveled down to Ushuaia at the southern tip and went to Antarctica and then kind of started traveling back up. But like the best thing that I figured out about this nomadic lifestyle for me, being that I could decide at any point in time when and where I wanted to go and how I wanted to do it. And I didn't set a lot of expectations for like, I'm going to go to this place, then this place. And, I kind of left it open. So I was only in South America for about 3 months, I guess, when a friend of mine like invited me to come to St. Thomas in the U.S. Virgin Islands and sail with him on his boat down to Grenada. And like, I jumped at it, right? Because this is why I was doing this, to try new things and like live outside my comfort zone and like feel all the, learn all the lessons that come when we do things that are like super uncomfortable and outside of our actual expectations. Yeah, so then I went and did that and then walked to the Camino Santiago in Spain. Like it just landed out. So I thought I was going to do it for maybe a year or two. And 6 years later, I'm still doing it. And like 7 continents. And like I'm just addicted to this lifestyle now. And, just for people wondering, it doesn't need to break the bank.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Right? Like you can do it.
No, you can do it.
Being some wealthy, whatever. And I found great ways to do it inexpensively as well, because like I've done Workaways, if you knew what that is.
Can you tell me more?
So it's like an app. Workaways is an app, and you can look all over the world where people are looking for like to bring in some help on like organic farms or help like. And so anyway, you get in exchange for like 4 hours a day of whatever work they offer, you get lodging and food and kind of that kind of thing. Okay. Like more importantly than that is like you are living with locals and you meet such great people. I did that in Uruguay, and it was an amazing experience. It was like totally self-sustaining farm, and I do house sits and that kind of thing. So you can do it, holding on to that freedom and like letting go of expectations of what it's supposed to be, and just like easing into, I'm doing this so that I have the freedom to change my mind anytime I want.
Yes.
Right. So yeah, I mean, I wasn't planning on coming here for this long, and then I'm like 5 months later,
yes. And 6 years later, I mean, in general, 6 years later.
This, and I can't imagine not doing it. Right. I would be miserable, I think.
Yes.
In my home.
Yeah. And I think, my mom, starting 6 years ago, that really set the example for me. And so, yeah, it's very kind of uncommon to have a parent who moves out of the United States and then travels all over the world. And so at the time I was in Los Angeles and I was living and started my business there. And so I was, always following along like on Facebook and Instagram all over the world where my mom was going. And so during that time, I was really kind of in like the matrix lifestyle. I was just working and okay, you live this life. And so fast forward 5 years, and I'm watching this going on. I was feeling unsatisfied, I guess, with my life in Los Angeles, and I wanted to do some travel. I didn't actually plan on coming to live overseas, but, I had confidence really from watching her. I was like, okay, I can do this too. And my mom's been doing this. And so then I took a trip to Thailand, was supposed to be 2 months. And now I've been here coming up on 2 years. So it all really started, with her going out and like really setting the course, right? And breaking the path, breaking the trail.
Yeah. I mean, like you are a living example for and an inspiration for your son. And I'm sure other people that can listen to us and can hear us might also resonate and with your journey.
I think that as a parent, that for me, it was important, and I didn't think about this when I was deciding to like totally upend my life. But after a while, I was like, what I'm actually doing is teaching my kids that you can recreate your life at any point in time.
Yeah.
Right. And it doesn't need to mean you have to solo travel or travel nomadically or move to another continent, but you can like decide what you want your life to look at and then start through the process.
Yeah.
Changing it. So I'm hoping that's what, what they're learning, my son and my daughter learning from me doing this kind of uncommon lifestyle is just that, like, if you believe in your abilities, you're not happy with your situation, you can.
And what inspired you?
Again, like I spent a fair amount of years after my divorce, like feeling like I didn't have much self-confidence and like my self-esteem was kind of low or whatever. And I started challenging myself to do things that would make me uncomfortable because I decided like if I wanted to change these things about myself, I had to do it. Like it was coming from within. It wasn't somebody else that was going to go, now you're going to do this, And just through that process, like I just started challenging myself. And like I went my first solo trip ever. I went to Belize and became scuba certified. Both things that terrified me. First, it was my first solo trip.
You were completely alone.
Oh, completely.
Oh, wow.
And then the scuba diving, like I never thought I would do that, but I was just like, if you're gonna go for it, like go for it. And I got there and I was so nervous about like simple things, just in terms of like eating by myself and walking around by myself and that kind of thing. And even just those like, I don't know, 5 days or something that I was there, I just like met people, other scuba people, and we just started hanging out, and I was just like, I kind of like this. And I left there feeling super, empowered and really encouraged to take steps to change my life. So that's when I went back and I said, okay, I'm going to move out of Wisconsin. I'm going to move down to Texas. So I started that whole process. And every time I would, I just felt so good about myself and my ultimate grew and self-esteem, the more I did things that were like hard, right? That other people wouldn't necessarily expect for someone of my age. And again, when I really hadn't thought about it, but when that early retirement came up, I was just like, I thought about it for a year because I had a year to make the decision.
Yeah. A year after your trip to Belize.
Oh yeah. So it was like 3 years later.
Okay.
3.5 years later or something, when I went to Belize when I was still in Wisconsin, like soon after the divorce. And then like I was living in Texas then, and the opportunity came up for the retirement, and I spent a year weighing the pros and the cons. And eventually I was just like, I can do this responsibly. I can rent out my house. Like nothing's really stopping me except for like societal expectations, right? Everyone is like, oh, you're doing what? Like except for my kids. My kids were both my daughter and my son were very much like, no, I think you should go for it. Like I think you should do it. So
and that's where I want to add on to, like, I mean, the value of not only like you showing us always that you can recreate your life and you can take new actions to start something new and take risks and that, but also like the societal norms, right? And overcoming those. So it can be very strong in America that like you stay where you are, you don't necessarily travel overseas. And so, don't make any waves like that. And so, but I think it's really, important, especially like younger people. So I'm in my 30s. I would say most people don't have parents necessarily that live that lifestyle or that really encourage that lifestyle. And so that was a huge value that has to be mentioned to me, like a huge benefit, that I did not have, a mother or father back home that was saying like, why are you leaving? Where are you going? Why don't you just stay and do what you do? And things are going well, just stay. You very much supported from the time I mentioned like, hey, I think we're going to go on a trip to Thailand and go explore. And, obviously she was very encouraging of it. And we even had some, I got the list and
wow.
Even we had some trip delays, because it was during COVID time. And so I remember her being like, well, you're still going, right? And kind of feeling like
really almost
like
pushing you.
Like a positive pressure, like a positive pressure.
Wow.
I knew if I didn't go, I think it would very much disappoint my mom, right? And because she knew what...
If you wouldn't do that.
If I did not go, right?
Okay.
So, and like she knew what was out there for me when I didn't know. And so to have kind of that push, but also, just seeing someone do it and being encouraging of it is so important, because I know many people, like my friends, who their parents would never go along with something like that, right? They feel a lot of pressure and to stay by family. So I'm very fortunate that, we're both overseas, and now living here on Koh Phangan together is amazing.
Yeah. And it's so important to have that back, because I think most people that I know, like personally speaking, like the people that I know are my age, like they're scared to do that journey, to do that, to live that life. And of course, the second generation, like their parents also, like they're scared. So it's like, yes, they feed each other, like the fear. And like when you're saying to your children, like, yes, you should do it, and I'm going to encourage it. that's a huge push.
Yeah, absolutely.
It is. I think for me also that I gained so many sort of like lessons and transformational experiences that changed my perspective of like me and the world around me and people that live differently, that be in different cultures and that kind of thing. Like I think everyone should do it because it's so good, the wisdom that you gain, and you start to have deeper, like especially when you're alone, traveling alone for like so long and everything is on you, right? Like you got to make all the decisions, you got to get yourself out of situations, that kind of thing. Like you become more introspective as well, right? And you start to examine parts of yourself that maybe like need healing or just need exploration that you want to change, right? About yourself, because even at 60 years of age, there's still things you can change, right? And every time you go through one of those layers, you find more layers that deserve more exploration, right? And I want that for everyone. That's why I'm writing my book, but I really wanted that for my kid, right? To be able to find those different perspectives that like I found so enlightening and so powerful. And so people are fearful of a lot of things, but you never dissolve that fear unless you actually go and do that thing.
Yeah.
Right. And then that's just like, you just do it. Like I'm not brave by any means. And tend to think I'm just like naive, like, oh, I'm going to go here, I'm going to do this.
Yeah.
I've arrived in places just out of the blue and just said, okay, well, let me see how this is going to be. And like, I don't recommend that for people right away who are just starting to travel. I would recommend some plans and accommodations and that kind of stuff. But for the most part, I don't really do that so much anymore.
When you talk about kind of the journey, like the growth journey, right? It's really kind of a personal growth journey. When you decide to travel and live overseas. And so actually when I started then my, leaving the United States and I came overseas, I was also going through the end of a 10-year relationship, which ended at around the same time. And so that was like another huge shift in my life that I think traveling and getting out of my comfort zone, my matrix lifestyle, it really kind of opened me up to like what I could create next in my life. And so, not only was it a big shift to come over, but then, ending 10 years with someone, I think without doing that, it maybe didn't play out the same way, right? If I would have stayed in the United States and where I was, right, you kind of keep going with things, even if maybe they're not great for you. And so, for me, it was a huge part of my personal growth journey and really like the introspection, right? You end that and then, I'm on Koh Samui over here in Thailand, and you have a lot of time alone, like to think and to revisit the past and think about the future.
Right.
And when you live in your normal, comfortable day-to-day life, you don't have a lot of time or really a push to do that deeper work.
Right.
Which I know is super important to us. So,
yeah.
And Ty, do you have like any idea of maybe you can imagine your journey, or if you would have had that journey, or you would start that journey without maybe your parents' encouragement, or you think you would do that without that? Like, how would you see that? It's all maybe or how?
It's hard to know, right?
It's hard
because I probably would not have even had the idea planted to go overseas somewhere. Like I remember being in my apartment in LA and thinking like, okay, there has to be more than this. Like I'm in my home, I'm in my office, and there's the traffic and all this that you deal with. And so, but my creativity might have taken me in a different direction than leaving the United States, except if I didn't have the example to really see it. So, it kind of started floating around in my mind, and it's like, I'm watching my mom every day travel the world and visit all 7 continents, and and it's this kind of like, okay, I could do something like that. What would that look like, right? And
wow.
So, and she's always been very supportive, whether it was, starting my business and taking that like leap, right? It's a huge shift when you go from thinking that you should work for someone to work for yourself. That's a big shift in your life and your identity, really. You have a large identity shift in personal growth, and then deciding to travel kind of gave me another stage of the personal development journey.
Yeah, also the thing about traveling, and especially when you're solo, but like even if you're paired up with someone, I think that like every time you land in a new place, like for me, for us, I think I can speak for both of us that we both like get this surge of like energy and creativity, because again, like Ty was saying, if you're in just your normal life and you're not, doing anything that makes you just go, or, oh, God, I don't know about this. Like you stay in the same mindset, right? But when you step out of that mindset and try something new, I feel like it just like opens our mind to more possibilities. And then the more you do it, the more possibilities that kind of show up. And I think that's been a big shift for you, even just like in your business and things. Yep. Like I see you coming up with all these different, ideas and evolution of the business and that kind of thing. And maybe you would have still had that if you stayed in the same place. But I think it's we've traveled some different places together. Like you've traveled places on your own. I'm usually more so on my own. But it just gives you a new perspective, and it just opens your mind to, more ideas and creativity and like the beautiful people that are out there in the world that we don't necessarily know exist if we're not at least checking it out. And, they're beautiful and they're wise and they're, we have more similarities than we have differences. Right. So.
And on that note, I mean, we just came back from 1 week in Hong Kong together celebrating my mother's birthday.
I saw all of your Instagram stories.
Yeah,
I was obsessed.
It was a magical time. It was an amazing time. But even with that, we had been here for a few months, and, you feel sometimes like when you're living on an island, you need to get off sometimes. And so just leaving to go to a city environment, a different culture, different language, food, really for your mind, it's new stimulus, and you kind of come up with new things. Or I think even some of the time there, maybe we were both feeling actually almost a little bit stagnant, like when we were there. Right, because it is a shift and it's different than island life, and I love living here, and so I couldn't work like I normally work, which you can happen, right? When you're a digital entrepreneur or a digital nomad, sometimes you land in places and you're like, there's no coffee shops like I like, and I can't work like this, and so at least for me, I was feeling maybe a little bit stagnant there, but I knew, okay, take some time away from doing your normal routine always serves me well, and so by the time we landed back on Samoa. I think that night then we're at dinner and it's like a bunch of new ideas and solutions for my business and even things in my life kind of get planted in. Like it's like you kind of take this break and then it opens the gap and then more things come in. And so it's huge to move around.
And it's so stimulating, and it's like really expanding your world.
3 months to write. I'm trying to finish editing this book, and I thought, okay, Ty's there. I had been here a year ago for a couple weeks. I was like, I really love the island and, all the opportunities that are there. And I decided, I'm just going to do it. I'll try it out for 3 months. And I have to say the first month I was a little restless, right? Like I was just like, no, I feel like it's like I'm supposed to be, that's my identity. I need to be moving and doing all this. So I had to work through that.
Yes.
And go, well, no.
Because it's so hard to break that identity. Like we're so attached to it. Yeah.
I don't want it to be my identity.
Yes.
I want it to be because it's my lifestyle and I love it. And it's just it's for me. It's not for everyone, but it's for me. And 5 months later, I'm, or we'll be 5 months. By the time
probably turning into 5 years soon.
Whoa, yeah.
Yeah. And I know I'll come back. You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So I found a place. Part of my travels has always been in different places. Is this a place that I might want to see myself living in retirement, because I don't necessarily want to live in the United States. So, a lot of different places and experiences. And this is one of the places that I would say, I would come back to maybe do 3 or 4 months a year, when I'm ready to be a little more in that zone. This is definitely one of those places. And hopefully you'll still be here too. It's just fun. I was away from my kids for so much of the last 6 years. I would go home and visit here and there. My daughter came over here just recently. But it's just fun to know that he's in the same little town.
Yes.
The island, I guess, that I am. So we can go hey, you want to meet up for dinner or coffee or something?
Oh, wow. That's the dream.
Yeah, it's a dream for me. I realized that, after you moved here and like I realized after I left home at 18, we had never lived in the same city or even the same state.
Because you lived in Los Angeles, you lived in Texas.
Yeah, and so it was always, apart, and then she went overseas. And so, yeah, now, I mean, it's just amazing to be able to, like, on, whatever night of the week, we're like, hey, let's have dinner together, or let's go do a class or workshop together. Let's go to the gym. Since I was 18 years old, it was a long time ago.
I feel very blessed that we have this time.
I'm jealous, I have to say, in a really good way. Don, I really want to ask you. I want to ask you about the book, but before that question, what comes to me is because I'm when you're talking, when you talk, I think about the mothers that I know and the fathers and my parents, specifically saying, and there's a lot of responsibility, there's a lot of weight, and I want to ask you if you feel that responsibility, of like, breaking away from your ordinary life, taking your children, taking Ty, or maybe inspiring Ty to do stuff, maybe encouraging Ty, as we started saying from the beginning of the conversation, doing something that is unexpected, unknown, and we are live by the known, by the comfort, and like a lot of parents, like my parents, would be like, no, you need to study, you need to work, you need to get married, you need to bring children, you need to buy a house, you need to do this, you need to do that, and like, what the hell? Thailand? What are you doing? This is like, this is your life. You need to like move on by the pattern. And I hear you actually encouraging the other side of it.
But I also understand where your parents are coming from. I had to sort of recreate my own life after the divorce, because I just realized I wasn't living the life that I wanted to live. I didn't feel like I was authentic. I didn't feel like I was vulnerable enough. Like I just, and so that sort of forced me to do something different. And one thing just sort of led to the other, right?
Right.
I think so many people are afraid of doing, or parents are concerned because they're concerned about safety. Right. That's my main thing. I mean, I've been worried when he was coming over, like, I know how to feel safe in a place, but like, does my son or when my daughter's traveled in the past, like I still worry.
Yeah.
Even though I want to encourage them to do it. But the difference, I think, is just that everything that I've gained from changing my life, and it's not easy, right? But for me, it was kind of priceless. Like I said, like I just learned so much more about myself, and feel like the transformation that I got, like it's internal transformation as much as an external transformation, right? When you choose to live an uncommon life, whatever that is, right? It doesn't need to be nomadic living, but like anytime you choose something that's sort of uncommon, people are going to question, society's going to like what's up with them. And I know for me, like a lot of people were, when I decided to do this and was starting to talk about doing this, they were trying to say that I was running away from my own life, or my old life.
Did you feel that way?
I did not.
You did not?
At all. No, because at that point,
this is interesting.
All the changes and the things that I went through in those years between the divorce and the time that I did it, it taught me to depend on myself, and that I could depend on myself. I could get myself out of, bad situations. Like I could make decisions. I could, do all the things that before I did this, I didn't have the confidence, to do. So
it's almost like you taught your nervous system to be ready for this, for this life.
Yeah, exactly. So I understand where your parents are coming from, but also, everybody, from young people to, your parents' age, like if they would just step outside of their comfort zone, I think that they would feel whatever that is for them, right? They would have a better understanding of maybe what you're doing. But a lot of people stay stuck. Society says, no, you're supposed to do this, and then you're supposed to do this. And I was supposed to like just stay in Texas and work until I was 65. And then, I don't know, after that. And I just feel like really blessed that that opportunity was put into my life super unexpectedly. Like I had no idea. I just got an email one day like, hey, you qualify if you want to do this. And it was like,
wow.
I was like, there's no way I have responsibilities. I just bought a house. I have like all these things I'm supposed to be doing. But I also knew like my kids were doing very well on their own. And as long as I was being responsible with my own finances and nobody's getting hurt by it, like I was all in.
Yeah.
I wanted to do that. I wasn't running away from that. It was like kind of stepping in to something new and exciting for me and just wondering where it would go. I
Wow.
had no idea it would be 6 years later.
Yes, for sure. Mm.
Yeah, so you feel you feel the responsibility as a parent, always, I think, right? That's always in the back of your mind. But, happier the more they see you happy and
Yeah.
what you're doing, it'll eventually be like, okay, well, he's doing okay.
Well, I think there's also a responsibility, like as a parent, that you've always done an amazing job with, is while you want to provide structure for your children, right? You want to raise them the right way and kind of lay out a path that you think is good for them. You were always great about kind of giving me a blank canvas to paint on, right? I mean, so there was structure. Okay, you need to be a good person, you need to have good values, but I never felt pressure that, okay, you have to go to this university, you have to marry this person, you have to get this job. I never felt that.
Right.
And it was always very much like, Ty, use your imagination and create what you want to come up with. And so, yeah, I took a very kind of unconventional path when I graduated university. Basically, I met my first business mentor and started working with him. And shortly thereafter, started my first business. And so really, I've never worked in like the corporate job America thing. I never really fit those boxes. And you are the one who helped me identify even early on in my life that maybe I was not going to fit into those boxes. And so instead of where some parents might have been concerned or even punished their child for not fitting into the box, you always like very much encouraged it and said like, you're your own person and you can be who you want to be. Don't worry about what other people say. And so, that started early on and definitely carried through until now where, yeah, I feel like no matter what I do, as long as it's with good intention and having good values, that, my mother will never be disappointed in me and be proud of me for maybe taking an unconventional route, an uncommon route.
Yeah. I mean, you've created an amazing business and you created something from nothing, right? Like how many people do that really, And so, yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of.
Oh, it's cool with you, Mo.
Yeah, I mean, I was when you started saying about the responsibility, I was drifting a little bit too tight to see Ty, and I have to say you were not seeing like you're looking at me, but there's like what he's like soaking up all of your energy and like from what I see from here and like the inspiration and like
yeah, it's true.
I can
It's
really
absolutely
see
true.
it from here. Like, what would you say, Ty, to people that may perhaps doesn't have that? And I think most people doesn't have that. I will generalize it right now. Maybe I'm not doing grace with that, but like, you think it's possible to get that anchor and that raw model from the way you did by yourself with yourself, like, it's, because not a lot of people have this. Like when I started my journey, like obviously my parents didn't know what I was doing, what I wanted. I actually came with like flight tickets. There was no consultation.
Really?
Yeah, because I knew that if I'm going to get their advice, if I'm going to be like with my parents, like, what do you think about me going to Thailand and starting a new life? Or maybe like, I'll find a job there. Or like, I knew that their answer would be like, I don't think it's a good idea. Like, just continue what you're doing. You have your career. Yeah, I don't know, get an apartment here, like, stay in your comfort zone. And I knew that's going to be their answer. And also with most of my friends, like, they will be like, you lost your mind. You completely lost your mind. So I knew that about myself. Therefore, I didn't really ask for advices from a lot of my friends, which is pretty sad. And from my family, not that they are encouraging me now. Like my family visited me here a couple of months ago and they were like, I really understand you now. Yeah. But before that, they were like, you lost your mind, you're crazy, like keep doing what you're doing. I just didn't see that happening. But I found that anchor within myself. And I actually found that anchor with people that I was listening to, like people like me doing the podcast now, like seeing them doing it and now, oh, it's possible.
Yep.
Or YouTube's or podcasts or Spotify's. Yeah. Do you have any other ideas? Where do you find these anchors?
Well, I think I'd take this
Hi.
one too, because it's a great question on,
Yes.
like, yeah, if you don't have a really close family or friend who maybe lives this, right? Like, where do you look, or how do you get the inspiration, or feel comfortable kind of going against your loved ones and your friends and what they want? So I think, first of all, for everyone, it should really start within, right? Like, I mean, you kind of get to a certain point in life, I think, where you have to understand, like, I'm my own person. I create my own life. And so, yeah, really, I guess it's kind of a lot of self-work that you could do to, create off a blank canvas and say, you know what, at the end of the day, people, I think they're thinking about me, but I don't really believe they are, right? And so they might have some comments or advice like, don't do this, don't do that, but I kind of have a belief that they're not really that invested. And so you should not care what they think, that kind of thing.
But it's a hard thing to break too sometimes, right? When society's saying this is what you do next and
Absolutely.
everyone else is. I think that's a hard thing to do.
But I think in terms of where people can look, it's exactly what you said, is that now with social media and like what we're doing here with like podcast and YouTube, and that there are so many examples of people who are doing whatever it is you might want to do, right? Whether it's travel and living overseas, or starting a business, or just getting really into a hobby or interest. I have many kind of like digital mentors, right? People that I follow, that I learn from, that I also kind of take in their energy. And that gives me a lot of creativity, imagination, and also confidence to, you know, take a risk, make a jump, and get out of the comfort zone. So I think, but yeah, I can understand how pressure from people who, you know, you look up to your parents, or, you know, you really value what your friends think about what you're doing with your life. But my advice to them would be more invested in what you think about your journey and think about your life.
And I think it's with everything. It's with relationships, it's with friendships, it's with your location, with your job, with everything that we are, as you started saying, like we feel identify with. And like,
what do you think shifted your decision to, because you had all those pressures more so than like we even did, right? And so what was your tipping point where you were just like, yeah, no, I'm just going to do this?
well, it's a great question, because I actually wanted to ask you the same, and I will answer it. And you will, I think, for me, like it led me to a place where there was no other option. And what really interesting me during my journey is, how do you make that decision without going into the point, to the edge, where you're like, you know what, there's no other options but me just leaving. And, you know, when you go into that point, you have all this judgment of like, I'm actually escaping. And you started saying that I didn't feel like I was escaping. And I was like, thank you for saying that, because I always feel like now, obviously less, I don't like, I felt like I'm escaping at a problem. I'm escaping the issue. I'm escaping my triggers. And, you know, like also like my environment were like, stop escaping, like just go, this is the bubble. That's not the real life. Go into the real life, what you need, like where you need to live. And like, you know, but
that is once you step into that, that's something different. You probably started working on your triggers and working on thinking about these things. It makes us better people. I mean, that simplifies it, but for me, or me personally, it made me a better person to do this, right? I just learned so much more about myself, and I had the choice. I didn't have to jump into it, but I don't know. Something was telling me this was like, you got this opportunity, like you're not going to waste it. You're not going to go, no, I'll stay at work for another 10 years. So that, I mean, there wasn't any like one specific thing other than just a desire to try something different. And do something that was unexpected and sort of uncommon, and just see where it would take me. Like I always knew I had a safety net if I wanted to, if it just didn't work out at all, like, hey, this is not meant for you. But you never know if something's meant for you or not
until you try it.
Well, and Zach, I want to comment on something we talked about with like taking things to the edge.
Yes.
Right. And I think actually too many people, and we can call this going outside of your comfort zone, or like my mom likes to say, like, let's not play small in our lives.
That's the name of your Instagram profile.
Is let's not play small, right? And so I think too many people are afraid to push things to the edge, push things to the limit. and, you know, they fear the risks, the consequences in that. But for me, I've found in my life that until I do push something to the edge or to the extreme, the learning doesn't really begin. And kind of once you get to that edge and you're like, okay, what am I going to do? Am I escaping? Am I going to come up with a new plan? Am I jumping down into the water below and it's a whole new experience, right? And so, yeah, I think taking things there and taking them far is, everyone should do it, right? And you know, life is a series of things you're going to fail at and learn from, and you keep repeating the cycle, right? And I think if people fear running that cycle and just always trying to be right, they're never going to really bring out their full selves, their true selves.
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think, I'm actually going to bounce the question that you asked me, Don, back to you and maybe in a different form. You were in a long-term relationship, you were married, and Ty, you were also in a long-term relationship as well. Do you think if you wouldn't break up or you wouldn't have that shift, do you feel like you would still try this life? I'm asking it because there's a lot of, some people, like, they have their relationship and children and their house and everything is like so stable, set up, and like, I'm not able to move out from this kind of like setup. And maybe you were forced to leave that setup. So you were like, okay, I'm not in my place anymore. Why not trying to go to the extreme a little bit more?
Yeah. But there was about 3 to 4 years in there between the time that happened and the time I took the leap and did this. And what's so important is, for me, was that during those 4 years is where I grew. Like, if I had remained married, you know, none of that had happened, I would still be in, and it wasn't a bad life. I mean, I had great friends, nice play, like, you know.
Yeah, it's a great life.
In Wisconsin.
Yeah.
We, you know, we're very close in family and that kind of thing. But it really wasn't until I was kind of like all on my own that I started really examining myself, right? Like I said, like I wasn't happy with kind of who I was in terms of how I was showing up for the world and all of that kind of thing. But I didn't even think about those things until I went through that breakup, right? And then I just started working on them. And like I say, you work on one thing and then something else comes up and then you're working on that. And it like expanded my sort of appreciation of like who I was and maybe who I could be. I could be more vibrant. I could be more interesting. I could be more like these kinds of things. And just the little steps that took place over those like 4 years and the move and, you know, all of that kind of thing, that when the opportunity presented itself, like I had already done that work, as I already feeling strong and sort of confident in like my abilities, right? So I think that's something that people need to consider, because you could just jump right in and, you know, still learn all these lessons and things. But, you know, I was older, right? I had a different perspective on what I was supposed to be doing and who I was supposed to be at that point in my life. And there was a little bit of that in my head, like, what are people going to think? But then, you know, the more I kind of challenged myself on that, I was just like, what do I care? Like, if I can do this, why not do it? Like, it didn't make any sense for me not to try it.
And from what I've seen at a more kind of just surface level of people, like, let's say we're talking about moving somewhere completely different than where you currently live, right? Is that I found no matter where I end up, life is very much the same. Like, people, okay, here in Thailand, it's an amazing country. The people are amazing. And life is actually really not that much different just in your day-to-day, right? In a way. So for people to fear, like, I'm going to move with my family or my children or my spouse, it's really not maybe as exotic or crazy as they think, right? Like, you can find things of comfort for yourself. You can find great friends. And I think so many people, it kind of holds them back. They think this is going to be some like exotic place and it's going to be uncomfortable or it's going to be unsafe. And sure, there are places in the world that, you know, are unsafe. But I would say not Thailand, right? So this is another reason why I love Thailand and Asia as well, is that it's very safe. It's a place that you can, whether you're single or you have a spouse and kids, you can come and create a new life for yourself. And I personally believe enjoy a much higher quality of lifestyle, which is one of the things that has also kind of kept me here.
Yeah,
Instead of going back to the United States.
for sure.
I've made so many mistakes and been in situations like I was stuck in lockdown in India when the pandemic started and had to find a new place to live and like find food and so there's things that it's not all not a vacation. Like I'm trying to explain to people, this is not vacation, it's like a lifestyle. Like when I'm more in the travel mode, I also try to stay to routine. I love just having my coffee outside in the morning and just like doing those kinds of things. But I think that I've never met anyone who said, oh, I'm just going to go do that because it's going to be so simple. And so everyone's kind of struggling with the same thing. But the people who I know who did it anyway are people like you and like us who are just like, actually, it's not bad. If you land in a place you don't like it, go someplace else, right? Like you have options.
Yeah. I mean, I wasn't really planning to live in Thailand for a year and something until I was in Sri Lanka for a month, and I was scared, so scared. I'm going to go alone. I don't know where I'm going. I don't know how it's going to be. I don't know how the food like. I don't know how the room's like. I don't know what to expect. It's a long flight. I don't know. Maybe I think a lot of the people, and personally speaking, afraid of being alone, because usually we travel together with family, with friends, and like going to some place alone it's like there's a lot of judgment. Like I'm going to be alone. People are going to judge me. I'm going to judge myself. I can't really enjoy being alone. Why would I go to a party alone? Why would I sit by the beach alone? How would I do that? And actually, I taught my nervous system and myself how to do that. So that kind of like gave me the courage to do the longer trips. And I think personally speaking, that was my first stage of like, okay, I know how to make the decision. But when people ask me, or people ask in general, like people that come here for to travel and as tourists, like they want to do the same, but then they start making excuses. And it's like, oh, I don't know how to work. Like, and I'm not saying they're not valid.
Yeah.
They're like, I don't know work-wise. I don't know community-wise what I'm going to do. Where would I live? What would I do? Like, where do you start? Where do you bring the spark that leads you into making the decision of traveling? I'm going to do this.
Oh yeah, and being alone.
Yes, and being alone and doing it, actually jumping into that.
Yeah, I think again with a growth journey, right? So I'd spent 10 years with my girlfriend, and she's also my business partner. So we were extremely intertwined. And I was never alone from age like 18 until 30, right? I was always with her. We always worked together. We would go everywhere together. And so I had never done things like what you mentioned, like go to a party alone, go eat in restaurants alone, right? It was very rare for me. And so, with that, there is kind of a lot you have to overcome, right? And it is fair for people, who are watching this, listening to this, there are these unknown things. Well, what am I going to do? How does my cell phone work? My job, my family, and this and that. And so I think it's just, again, not being fearful of failure, right? And saying, look, I'm going to try something new. I'm going to go to this party tonight and know no one. And I never thought before I would ever like doing that. And it turns out I love it. I love going to eat alone. I love going to parties alone, right? And that's actually how we met.
Wow.
I think is that guy came to a party alone, and then you're like, when you don't have someone with you all the time, you find ways. You're like, I want to talk to someone. I'm like, okay, here's this guy. Oh, let me talk to him, right? And then it led to this. And so I think also knowing that as you experience it more, that there's amazing things that come of whether it's being alone or moving your family to a whole nother country. Like there's these whole other experiences waiting on the other side of the fence, and you should go for it.
A lot of people get confused with alone and lonely.
Yes.
And yeah, when people hear us, and when I was hearing even myself, or I would be like, I go and eat by myself. I go I even went to the cinema in Samoy by myself, and I was like, I didn't feel lonely. I was doing it alone, but in this part of my life, I feel so happy to do that. I go to the cinema, I buy what I want, I go shopping after. I was like,
I think that it's like you don't get comfortable or you don't start to enjoy your own company, I should say, until you kind of challenge yourself to enjoy your own company. Because a lot of people don't spend a lot of time together. They're with their family and they're with their friends and doing it. So to go somewhere like completely on your own, everything's on you. I know that's intimidating.
yes,
But the opposite of that is to do nothing, right? Or, I mean, maybe not to do nothing, but like if it's in the back of your head that maybe it's something you want to do, that's kind of a sign to me, right? To pay attention to that and like, well, let me see. I mean, people can just do, they don't have to jump into a full-on like moving to this island in Thailand and living there for how long? Like they can just do a month somewhere, or especially like with the digital nomads now, they can just kind of move around and work from anywhere. But I even find that there's more people my age who have retired. It's mostly couples, but there are a fair amount of like, single women who travel around and do these things. And it's just a matter of, there is the lonely. Like sometimes it is lonely.
yes,
Right? But then if I'm feeling lonely, then I got to go inside and go, why am I feeling lonely? Is it just because I don't have a person to go to dinner with? Is it because I'm really seeking more company? And so then you have to kind of examine those things,
yes,
right? And I like being alone. Like I'm totally cool with being alone.
yes,
I think the loneliness thing is a valid like concern for most people if they're talking about like traveling solo somewhere. They say like in the research that I've done that people, the three top fears, and I would actually add loneliness into that, is that people have when they, think about even traveling solo is personal safety, right? They're like, I don't know, is someone going to attack me on the street?
yes,
We don't know about the rest of the world until we start experiencing the rest of the world. They're worried about like getting lost and not being able to speak the language. Well, how am I going to do anything if they speak Thai and I speak English or, whatever? And then the eating alone. Like it seems like such a simple thing, but like...
Yeah, there's also finances and stuff. How am I going to fund this?
Yeah, especially if you're like, sometimes I feel bad for the younger people who are, and we're just going, okay, so now how am I going to make a living doing that, right? So that's something that's kind of separate from actually making the leap to somewhere that you want to experience sort of the first time.
Yeah.
And all of those things are based on fear, right?
Yes.
But we don't start to dissolve the fear till we
do it.
Honestly, like your health and finances, right? Like just give it a try and the rest of the stuff it'll play out. Like it'll work out. You'll figure it out. You'll find people to hang out with if you're lonely.
Yes. And what do you do when you feel lonely?
If there's not an opportunity to like go out to a place where I think like, oh, if I go have dinner here, I'll probably find some people to talk to, or like sometimes in some places where I'm traveling, like you can meet up with like expat groups. So other people sort of my age, really, that are not always my age, but who are kind of doing a similar thing, or even just on vacation for a few weeks or something. So I'll try and sort of join in, or I'll do a group tour somewhere, so I have a day that I can like knock ears off and stuff. But more so, I think that for me, it's just like, why am I feeling lonely? Like, do I need more people? Like, do I need to make more friends? Do I need to call one of my kids? Girlfriends back home or something.
Yeah.
And so it forces you to examine yourself when you come up with those things.
Wow.
And, you'd be lonely at home too, probably, truly, if you're...
Yeah, but at your home, you have your tribe, or you have your community and your tribe and the things that your language, your culture.
Issues or, problems that I'm trying to work through or whatever, you still got your people there at home that you can call. And, that's a huge advantage to like our new technology these days,
And it's important to remember that you are important for a lot of people.
Yeah.
And to get that confirmation. Yes. I'm still here. Yeah, I still love me.
Yeah, and for me, the loneliness question, yeah, loneliness is actually kind of something I've dealt with a lot since I started my journey as an entrepreneur. It can be a very lonely journey, right? Like it's you, and even if you have a team or partners, right, as the entrepreneur, as the founder, you're like the seed of the ideas, and you're the seed of a lot of solutions, and so it can be very isolating. And it's something that I learned to get comfortable with and actually love, like going to my office alone on the weekend and just having space to think and meditate and imagine things, right? And so I started finding that being alone was very beneficial for my energy, for my thinking.
Wow.
But yeah, of course, sometimes it doesn't feel good if you're like, hey, I haven't talked to people in days or sometimes weeks, right? Like as an entrepreneur, sometimes you like go under the water and you're just working for a few weeks at a time. And so, one, I think, and maybe it could be like a Pisces thing, is that you kind of, we're like, I'm my own best friend, right? So I can go places and I have kind of a dialogue in my head, and a narrative and storylines and stuff, right? And so, but yeah, like just in everyday, day-to-day life, the loneliness thing, I think, it's amazing now everyone's connected. So you can catch up with friends or family back home. For me, I also found a lot of company with people on YouTube, like that I'm learning from, right? Or reading books. Like these are some things where maybe if I'm feeling like that, I don't necessarily need to go out to a party or a social gathering, but maybe I need to pull up one of my favorite authors and just read their words and kind of immerse myself in their world. So you find different ways to kind of, go through it. And some people obviously have more social needs than others. But I do find with social things that then if I'm lonely for a little, while, when I connect with like good people, like meeting you, right, is like, then I get energy from it.
Right.
And I'm energized and I feel good afterwards. So, those are just some of the ways that I think you can combat it.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, I don't think, with noticing or without noticing, you're bringing all of your people here or there or other people that you don't even know. And we all do this at the moment, because it's inspiring. Is this something that you also talk about it in your book that we wanted to talk about?
Oh, well, yeah. So I'm writing a book. It's a travel memoir. Been working on it for like 3 years now, but it's getting there. And it's a book really about like, it's a stories about where I've been in experiences and things that I've had in this like, uncommon lifestyle. But it's also more so, it's about like trying to inspire people, women specifically, kind of a certain age is kind of the niche that I'm going after. But I found a lot of younger people are kind of interested in it as well.
Of course.
To just inspire them to try something different in their own life. Like not necessarily you have to travel, not necessarily you have to go live somewhere solo, right? But just to like step outside your comfort zone, try something different, and just experience like the transformation that comes with that, right? So there's a lot of that, a lot of the lessons, the good, bad. I mean, they've been wonderful and wise and all, but there's some devastating stuff in there too, negative things.
Because it's not all perfect.
It's not all perfect. Like I'm very honest.
Important to mention.
But yeah, it's filled with, how I started this life, how I made the decision to do it, the steps I took through to get, my home ready and my life ready to be on the road full time. It's, checklists of things that you should know. It's love stories that happen along the way. And just inspire. I'm just trying to inspire more women to step outside their life.
Wow.
And imagine something bigger, whatever that means to them. Right? Doesn't have to be the same with mine.
Yes.
Whatever that means to them. So it's kind of a lot in there. And then I have a whole like bonus section that tells you everything about booking flights and accommodations, like all the how-to, right, are in like a bonus section.
Wow.
And so it's kind of a full encompassing of this lifestyle, but more so about the beautiful changes and transformation that occurs when we like challenge.
And by doing that, like you inspires your family. you inspires me, and I would really want you to replicate that inspiration to other people.
Well, and something that excites me so much about her book, right? And I haven't gotten she hasn't given, I have not been able to read it yet. Okay, so she hasn't allowed me to. She has not allowed me to read it yet. Right? Because, no, it's a very, I think, yeah, it's a very special. It's a part of you, right, that you're releasing into the world, and so that's something that excites me the most about it. Is that, and I know, you're writing obviously from Instagram and Facebook, and the writing, from my opinion, is filled with very much like transformational, inspirational lessons and messages, right? And so reading these and having an idea of what's in the book, I'm just very excited that, my mother is kind of taking her brain and her experiences and memories and putting it into the world.
Vulnerability.
And vulnerabilities, right? To not only inspire other people, but myself. And, when I have children someday, like, I just think it's going to be so cool to say, like, hey, your grandma wrote this book.
Wow.
And, and teach them through it, right? I think there's so many lessons to be learned within your book that it really growth lessons, right?
Yeah.
Like beyond the how-tos and this how you travel, but I know really the bulk of it is, making these changes, stepping out of your comfort zone. And so, I'm excited to have that like in our family. And
wow.
I think it's amazing what you're doing.
So much courage and so much wisdom. Wow. Thank you guys so much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Jack.